Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Realcomm Live. Good to be with you today. I'm coming in remotely from Tampa, Florida, where we are putting on the final touches of some of our issues and for the conference in June, and it's exciting. Sitting literally right now in the middle of what we're calling a digital district. Some really exciting things going on in this town, and we're going to be excited to show you in June. So this conversation we're going to have today, I know I've said this probably 100 times, this is my favorite, but honestly, the topic today is top three. And the topic is low voltage as it relates to smart buildings. And my journey with this goes all the way back to 2004. So we're now talking 20 years. Took a delegation of folks over to Asia. And on our stop in Tokyo, we were at Matsushita's corporate headquarters, and Panasonic had a showroom in the first floor. And so we were just looking at all these crazy new gadgets, home automation, smart houses. And this Japanese executive took a table lamp or a desk lamp and basically took an RJ45, a computer cable, and plugged it into the lamp. And it went on, it powered it. But not only did it power it, but it gave it connectivity to the point where you could download drivers, you could turn it on and off, you could see how much energy it was using, who the manufacturer was. It was basically an IP device, just like a printer would have been on a business network. And I was bit. I mean, I said, this is the future. There was a friend of mine from Cisco was with us. In 2004, we started talking about IPv6. We said, we're going to need more IP addresses just because of all these billions of devices worldwide that are going to want to connect to networks. And here we are 20 years later. We made a little bit of progress, but it's been a little slow. But I think what you're going to hear today from our guests is that we may be very close to a tipping point. So before I bring them on and we talk about some very cool specific projects, I'm going to show you a brief video that's going to give you an idea of the project we're going to discuss, and then we'll hit the ground running. We'll be right back. Right. So that gives you an idea. Let's bring on our two guests, Jim Baldwin and Steve Corcoran. Literally two of the smartest guys in the world on this topic. Guys, how are you?
Good, thank you.
No, I'm joking. There's probably a couple dozen people on the planet Earth that are at the cutting edge of this, and I would consider the two of you to be part of that group. I mean, I literally lift up rocks all over the world, have been for 25 years on this topic, and we actually have got some really good folks right here in the United States pushing this, of which the two of you are, duly engaged. So thank you for all your hard work. So before we start talking about the project, let's talk about you a little bit. Starting with Jim, how did you get involved with low voltage? What inspired you to tackle this big problem as it relates to buildings?
So I'll make it quick, but this actually started for me back when I worked at Apple in the late 80s and early 90s. I built a technology there called Firewire, which was this way of combining data and power on the same cable to power computer peripherals. And we just thought it was a sensible thing to do. And, fast forward to today, like FireWire and USB kind of became one thing, if you will. And it's like we don't think of the complexity we had to go through in the old days to hook devices up to computers. We just plug it in. Like when you plug a webcam in your computer, it just works. You don't think about what port you plug it into. So we looked at the building industry back in 2018 and did some projects, some low voltage projects for a customer, and we actually used PoE for it at the time, but we found it was just so cumbersome to deal with the Cat5 and all the extra switches and that infrastructure. So we said, hey, we're engineers. We can do better. So what would we do if we had a blank sheet of paper? So that's what drove us to build what we built today with Domatic.
So you've got a background of tackling some big problems with some big companies.
You bet, yeah.
Earlier, you had said you also helped develop Uverse for Microsoft, which was ultimately sold to AT&T.
Yep.
So you've got some credentials behind you.
Yeah, I feel like I've got some skills in building complex distributed systems that have to hang together and have 4 or 5 nines in their reliability rating. Yep. So yeah, it's definitely been something I enjoy doing.
Yeah. Well, Steve, we've been friends, I would call us at this point on this conversation, commiserate sometimes on how we wish things would move a little faster. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, sure. A little bit of a different path, 35 years in the low voltage solution industry. So working with service providers, the telcos in the Americas on large scale deployments, of course, all in a DC environment. It always has been. It was at one point 60 volts when we were doing telex machines and things like that. But 48 volts was always the standard. That's the environment I always lived in. So whether it was cellular across the country or transport fiber networks, working with Corning, that's the environment I lived in. And so when I moved to the commercial space, it was really large scale projects, stadiums, hospitals, things like that, where we were putting in big DAS systems, we were putting in big, DC driven electronics. So the commercial space to me was a shocker as to how it all went together. So as we moved into the commercial space, then how do we take all the lessons learned I have from the past and where we've been and try to incorporate that? I mean, we wouldn't think about putting anything but fiber and a DC environment into a large scale venue. So why don't we do it in smaller scale venues and see if it pencils? And it does.
So Jim spends his day building systems. Your main business is consulting, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So really working with developers and architectural firms and folks like that want to look at, or I try to convince them anyway, that a fourth utility approach where you look at the design of the building, how can you design it better to incorporate and build an architecture that supports various systems that are various for controls or convenience that you can put in that are low voltage by nature already. So folks like discovering Jim and Domatic was a huge happy dance for me, because he solved so many problems where I was looking for products that didn't exist yet. Yes, we have low voltage lighting, but it's never controlled over a low voltage network. So to me, it's like it's putting a really great device on the end of a dinosaur. It just doesn't make sense. Right. And for us, it's centralizing connectivity and distribution and DC distribution into a single point, and eliminating the cumbersome, expensive AC infrastructure in a building.
So, Jim, when you 2-3 years from now, as this thing picks up some steam, will people have to make decisions between your system and, say, a PoE architected system? I mean, is it going to be that distinctive that one will have benefits over the other?
I would say no, because we are an IP-based delivery system, just like PoE is. We have PoE connectivity devices that allow us to incorporate PoE devices into our system if need be. Yeah. I see nothing wrong with PoE for certain applications. We just didn't feel like it penciled for large deployment of lighting and controls throughout the building. It just simply
because of the switches and the routers and all that gear that's got to go into it.
all the home runs and Cat 5 termination. Try to tell an electrical contractor to terminate a Cat 5 cable and see what they say.
Well, and I've seen some of the early PoE building deployments, and those closets are full of lots of cables.
Yeah.
The builder on the project, that first project we did, they just threw up their hands and went and bought a bunch of package cables. So it was pretty bizarre.
So, Steve, I met you, or we got to know each other better on 303 Battery, which was the apartment building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, a year or so ago, you talking about this next project that you were working on. It was, coming out of the ground, concrete and steel, and I believe that was Burbridge Place, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the video that we saw earlier. Why don't you start, and then we're going to let Jim chime in on what that project is all about and all the different things you're doing with low voltage in that project.
Yeah, it was that's a 124 unit supportive housing project for the city of Seattle. It's something that everybody was really excited to get behind. And you think, well, do you really need high tech solutions and lots of bandwidth for supportive housing? And it was an interesting process in the design phase, because whether it was a for market rate rental apartment or supportive housing, the network didn't change at all. It was plug and play. So I used the same componentry, the same designs. I adapted it for the other building, but the end use case changed dramatically. So this is where Domatic really shines, in the sense that it wasn't about giving 10 gigs of Wi-Fi network connectivity to folks and things like that, but it was really about how does the building operator gain more insights into how their tenants are either managed in the building, or how are they taken care of from a temperature perspective. This is a fragile community, and having eyes on to water consumption, energy consumption, controllability of the lights and systems in the building was paramount for them. So it was really a surprise as to how far the tech enabled them to see what was going on in their building without having cameras on everybody all the time, although there are a lot of cameras. The ability to just, through the data collection, understand and know what's going on in that building was a revelation for them.
So, Jim, when Steve came to you with this project, I'm assuming you were pretty excited about the opportunity. What types of applications are you literally doing with this technology? I know we always talk about lighting, right? We start with lighting, but what other things are you connecting, and what applications are being developed around those connections?
So in general, we can power anything that's under 100 watts is the short answer. So anything that's 100 watts or less is a candidate for being powered by our system. And we provide not only, obviously, we don't just give power, but we give an IP address to every device. So that's kind of the core baseline. Where we don't power things, we also provide connectivity. So we integrate with HVAC systems where we might tie into the existing BACnet or Modbus interfaces on the devices, but provide over the common network framework the connectivity necessary so that you can now write software that can interact with the HVAC, but also respond to events from the door access controls, control the window blinds. Occupancy sensors can drive your algorithm. Even just watching weather patterns on the internet can tell you something how you should run your HVAC system. So we're trying to build a platform that breaks down the silos between different subsystems so that a single an application can be written to talk to all those subsystems without having to have special knowledge of what they are. So
this is more than just a low voltage power system. This is a smart building architecture, it sounds.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. And does it take a client a while to understand that, or do they get that pretty much right away?
There's only one thing that anybody new to our system has to understand, is that it's class 2. And that's because in order to take advantage of we, our hub has 10 outputs on it, and each one of those can be up to 100 watts.
So what do the electrical unions do when you come walking in the door?
Well, they don't seem to have too much of a problem with it. They, in a way, we are not asking them to do something they're not accustomed to, and we're allowing them to have a greater scope, if you will. So imagine not having to have a separate to do lighting, door access, window blinds, the high voltage power, all those subsystems could be could be wired up by one team, which
the reality is, though, a lot of MEP firms are working off the same playbook going back 20, 30 years. When they see this new technology, is there excitement? Is there apprehension? I mean, what's the general sense when you come in talking about this low voltage based smart building?
So anytime you see a new idea like this, you work with the people who are kind of on the left side of that Jeffrey Moore curve, the innovators, adopters. So there are plenty of them out there. They're willing to try something new like this. So we've been seeing a pretty positive response from the people we talk to because of the opportunity to do so much more with the same amount of work.
Exactly.
And I find myself as the go-between, right? If we've penciled the design and it does go through the GC process to an electrical firm, I'm the Q&A guy that follows it through from the management of that project, so that when we come to do a commissioning or the integration portion with folks like Jim Baldwin, then it's all ready to go. So I do find there's a little bit of hand-holding, but also there's the uptake is, it's another skill set for the guys that are working in the field. It's something new. They're not doing the same thing over and over and over again.
So who was the developer of Burbridge?
Well, the ask came from the city of Seattle.
Okay.
They do collect a lot of money, and they look to developers or to design folks for solutions. So this was a city of Seattle based project, and then managed through a GC that did the construction. It's the upper residential floors are offsite panelization from a company called Sustainable Living Innovations, and then a contractor GC actually built the whole thing on site.
And why did they? I mean, public sector organizations aren't necessarily known to be the most innovative. Why did they decide to take this? I don't want to say risk, but it was a little bit. Why did they decide to take this jump and do something that really has not been done a lot in the general commercial and corporate real estate industry?
Yeah, a lot of it was the insights that they would gain. So one, it was really easy to lay out a high level cost modeling and prove it from a cost perspective that you're going to eliminate this much labor, this much construction waste, all your raceway. I mean, an AC breaker in a residential unit now is GFCI and arc fault, right? These are $100 breakers. You can eliminate a lot of this infrastructure. So the cost modeling made sense, and especially if you're layering technology. So you've got a single platform that can operate your Wi-Fi and your access control and your lighting controls. And then you're layering in sensors and metering to this platform. So it gave them, the client was really receptive to the fact that they could learn more about their residents without being intrusive. So they can understand their energy consumption needs, the ability that if they're playing with the thermostat a lot, trying to make it warmer, they kind of know something's going on. Leak detection. The leak detection they had before was if the ceiling tiles on level 1 changed color. So this was a huge leap forward. So the kind of technology we had, and then surprises along the way. I did the design 4 years ago, and then someone goes, "Oh, what about connectivity for mechanical?" Right? Well, that was a 5-foot blue cable plugged into an optical network terminal and a VLAN that we produced, and they've got connectivity. So
we laugh about the ceiling tile, but do you know what a water leak on a 50th floor of a building does? I mean, water travels downhill, right? And if that's not detected for hours or days, it's devastating, right? Yeah. And to your point, it does not take an awful lot of technology to instrument that to the point where when that water starts hitting that floor, it, right?
Yeah, I think the closest thing that came to a group hug with this customer was when we talked about being able to give them an alert when the water's been running too long in one of the units. They were just like, that is gold to us. I mean, an affordable housing project cares a lot about operability.
So is this project getting the attention of, state government, federal government? I mean, are you starting to get people knocking on the door wanting to see it?
Starting to. I mean, we're now talking about future projects with this organization, and obviously, and a lot of the building going on now is much more on the affordable side. So I see that being a big component of our future.
Well, all right, we're going to take a brief break. When we come back, I know you got a couple slides show us some photos of the project, and we're going to go through those and then continue this great conversation. So we'll be right back.
Data collection tool of the future. Say hello to AkitaBox. Our user-friendly data capture app makes gathering on-site data easier, faster, and more accurate. Teams in the field can use AkitaBox's digital floor plans and asset mapping software as a step-by-step guide through the building. Whether you need an asset inventory, facility condition, accessibility, or energy assessment, digital floor plans allow for easy knowledge sharing between teams and departments, while still allowing each user to add custom data fields to track the information that's most important to them. Users can also easily add location-based notes, upload photos, scan assets through text recognition, and record recommended actions in real time during data collection. The AkitaBox Capture app works even offline. But that's not all. We're also the first and only end-to-end assessment software. Complete an entire assessment from initial data collection all the way to the final report in one software tool. Welcome to the data collection and assessment platform of the future. Welcome to AkitaBox.
All right, let's bring these guys back and continue this conversation. All right, so let's take, Jim, you had a couple of slides that you sent. Ian, if you could bring those up, and Jim, just kind of walk us through these slides. And
Sure. So just to give you some more detail on the Burbridge Place project, as Steve mentioned, it's a permanent supportive housing project. It's really it's built by the city of Seattle to combat homelessness, and it's for people. It's basically for a permanent place to live for people who are formerly homeless. It's 124 dwelling units and plus common areas. We power every photon in that building is powered by our system, plus all the sensors. It's purely DC powered infrastructure for everything in the system. There's no AC/DC conversion in anything we do. We are powering and connecting 1,503 fixtures in the building. That's lights, sensors, controls, switches, you name it. And they're all monitored, you know, when anything goes wrong with them, because it's a fully connected system. We do integrated emergency egress lighting. So when the power goes out, we automatically flip over into emergency mode to light the egress pathways. We have the system is entirely automatically provisioned. When we set up the system, for the most part, we're able to identify the fixtures in the building automatically by their fixture type and location in the building. So there's very little commissioning that has to be done. You simply disambiguate a few things. So we've got a little phone app that we built that you go through a unit, and it asks you to tap a couple of wall switches to clarify which is which, and you're done. Literally.
Now, in this project we're looking at on the screen, the scope includes lighting, ventilation, door access, HVAC. I mean, this is the whole smart building gamut. This is not just lighting.
But this slide jumped ahead to another project we're working on here, which is a prefab apartment building being built by Cloud Apartments along with plant prefab. But yeah, the scope of what we can do is pretty broad. There's very little that we can't do. The network is it's 100 megabit per second raw network, which is plenty for audio and some amount of video. We're doing speakers in the system. In that project, we are when tenants move into that building, they'll be able to just immediately play music on the speakers built into the unit. It's there's a lot of stuff you can do, ranging from the very basic, can you monitor the building, do you know what's going on, all the way up to can you provide a much better experience to the occupants. So
let's talk about benefits. Okay, the first and foremost, right on top of everybody's mind, is energy consumption. Give me, Steve, just a rough estimate of how much we're going to save going to a low voltage environment on the energy consumption.
You could easily say just through losses, especially if you start thinking solar as well, which seems like a really great idea, and then it quite often is implemented in a sort of a poor fashion with a lot of conversion between AC to DC that happens in buildings. But 30% is a pretty solid number. I think everyone can get behind. AC drivers are inefficient in their ability to drive a DC load from AC. And it kind of trickles down. You don't have a lot of energy consumption in your fixtures today. We don't have 100-watt light bulbs anymore, but you still have a very large piece of infrastructure that drives those low wattage fixtures. So by code, you still have electrical panels that service, a lot of energy, and the infrastructure to support it still could support a 100-watt light bulb, and yet we're drawing 10 watts. So we bypass all of that infrastructure. We start to delete that out of the.
So with these, okay, so we won't have time to get to all the benefits. We'll save that for June when you guys show up and talk about this at the conference. But energy, and then obviously the data element, knowing who's doing what, and being able to tighten up your equipment. We talked earlier about the conversions, not having to do the conversions from AC to DC, DC to AC. I think we're probably getting close to 50%, by the time we look at all the nuances of how we use this energy. But so here's the next question. With all of these benefits so obvious, you don't need to be a PhD to understand this. Why has the industry not spent more time leaning into this? Everybody seems still focused on producing more green energy and less about wasting the energy that we need. Steve, you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, I think the construction industry is old, and it hasn't changed a lot. There's better ways to deliver concrete than there used to be, but we're still using the same concrete in a lot of cases. It hasn't changed a lot. Electrical hasn't changed at all. So it's a wash, rinse, repeat cycle for a lot of this. So it really starts coming down to the architectural firms and the developers, and green energy is great. You can only put so many solar panels on the sides of a building, so you're limited on space, exterior space, to produce your own energy. So the other one is we've got to really work on reducing your loads as much as possible.
To me,
what I'm excited about too is
waste less.
Yeah. So if you've got storage of energy is a great idea, a great concept. Put the batteries in the basement, store that energy, so you can have your tenants utilize it. And California is a great example where your energy fluctuates by cost throughout the course of a day. So when's it wise to use stored energy versus off the grid energy? So a lot of that, and then the next big one for me is high voltage DC. So you can go to a completely DC building and you can run high voltage appliances, your stoves, your fridges, and the real big energy consumers in the building. If they were all DC.
The Tesla Edison battle is not done.
No, if you really draw it out on paper, it's not a battle, right? It's a pretty good economical decision.
Yeah. So Jim, final thoughts. We got to wrap. But what if you had 30 seconds talking to a developer who's considering a new project? Pretty used to doing things the old way. What would you tell them at least to consider what you offer?
Well, from our point of view, we are bringing savings at the installation in the time of installation. So there's definitely money to be saved in streamlining installation and lower cost of materials and things like that. But you really want to bring value to the customers. You're trying to make a better product that will help your customers save on OpEx, which is, a lot of the people we work with are built to rent because they totally value the OpEx. But I think even if you're just building to sell, you should want to be selling a building that's smart, because then you'll be able to, that it's going to be lower OpEx, which increases the value of the building.
Yeah, increases the net operating income. Exactly. Steve, final words.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jim, and also, on the tech side, the delivery of content and things like that, it's always been left up to the incumbents to do that. They own their network in your building. We have a great opportunity of having the building owner own their own network, so it adds to the valuation of the building as well. Like Jim said, the property value goes up because they've got a network that not only serves the tenants, but it serves the operations of the building as well. So you get that low voltage convergence of a system that's really built and designed for the building, for the operator, and for its tenants.
Yep. Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing. This has been a long life interest of mine. Like I said, at least going back 20 years, possibly even more. And to see two smart guys like you devoting your lives to making this happen. It's pretty exciting. So we probably will have you on one more time before the conference just to kind of tighten things up a little bit. But I know we had a great program plan at the conference. We're hoping to get at least 4 to 6 low voltage projects in the showcase, right, where people can go kind of walk and talk, to all the different developers. So we're going to hope you guys will bring at least a couple to that conversation, and it should be a good journey to June, and then it's going to be a great conference. And again, we're gonna keep diving into this very, very important topic. So,
looking forward to it.
Have a great day and stay out of trouble.
You too.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, with that, one of my favorite parts of Realcomm Live, the news. We got Howard over in Sydney, so he's on an airplane, or if he's there already. So we got his wonderful backup, Lisa, who does a phenomenal job with the news. So Lisa, I ran over. I am sorry.
That's all right.
I will give you the stage and be back when you're done.
All right, sounds good. We've got a number of great articles in our newsletter this week, so let's get right into it. Our lead article was written by Don Goldstein, Jeff Ewing, and Dean Hook over at 5Q and covers in detail the new cybersecurity rules recently introduced by the Securities and Exchange Commission. These new cyber rules affect public companies and emphasize governance, transparency, and risk management. According to the ruling, companies must disclose material cybersecurity incidents within 4 business days, providing specifics about the incident's nature, scope, and the impact. The rules also require companies to outline their cybersecurity risk management processes, their strategies, and their governance practices. The implications for businesses include a focus on robust risk management, building transparency and trust with stakeholders, ensuring regulatory compliance to avoid SEC penalties, and also strengthening board oversight for informed decision-making. We should all understand by now that cybersecurity is one of the most, if not the most important issue facing the commercial and corporate real estate industry. So this article is an absolute must read for everybody. The next article I want to mention comes to us from one of our technology partners, FreeSpace, about how insights are driving commercial real estate investment. The argument is made in the article that in this time of change, it's absolutely crucial to use facts and data as a guide instead of ideas and opinions to drive commercial real estate investment decisions, particularly in the context of hybrid working environment. The article offers a number of considerations when deploying technology, like a return on investment, privacy, accuracy, real-time event capture, and global reach, as well as lessons learned not just from the wins, but also past mistakes. There's also a link to a comprehensive resource called the Right Size, Right Design Guide, which features practical examples and project case studies that can be used to inform a CRE strategy. So make sure you check that out. It's a very good read. The last article I'll highlight from this week's newsletter is about the nonprofit Stacks and Jewels based in New York City. This is an organization we at Realcomm wholeheartedly support. We had them in our general session stage last year. We supported them through our charity golf event, and we just love the work that they're doing. In case you're not familiar with Stacks and Jewels, they run a unique job training program which helps students and adults, mostly from economically challenged backgrounds, to transition to high-earning careers in the building management industry. Their mission is to bridge the tech opportunity gap with a specialized curriculum in computer programming for building automation controls, which is directly addressing the high demand for young, skilled professionals in our industry. Stacks and Jewels has a high success rate with nearly 88% of students completing the workshops and 83% of graduates employed, mainly in the clean energy sector. This article takes us through the program, how it's different from other workforce training programs that are out there. It features interviews with some of the graduates and describes how Stacks and Jewels is a positive force in the lives of many of these young people, some of whom come back to teach and support the students coming up behind them. It's a great article about an amazing organization, so definitely check it out as soon as you get a chance. And then really quickly, a couple of other articles in our newsletter this week. Mark Peacock writes a recap of the AHR Expo, which happened a few weeks ago in Chicago. I happened to be there as well, and it was a great event. Cisco debuts security software meant to stop hackers who steal corporate logins. And then finally, we have an article on the rise of InnoCams. That's a new term. InnoCams, the new generation of intelligent surveillance technology. So the weekly briefing, of course, as you know, goes out every Thursday. And so this week's issue should be sitting in your inbox. But if not, just go on up there to our website, realcomm.com, and click on the news link, which is at the top of the page.
Great job.
Send it back
Great
to you.
job. Well, and you know, I won't comment on all the articles, but then that first one about cyber just keeps getting bigger. The drum beats keep getting louder. There was a hearing last week, and they had 4 senior government officials. Director Wray of the FBI gave just a frightening assessment of what is potentially coming as nation states get more involved in the cyber security or the cyber espionage business.
Right.
And, you know, it's one thing if a disgruntled employee is trying to hack you. It's another if a major country with major budgets and a lot of smart people. And cyber is going to continue to be elevated at the conference this year. We got the Real Estate Cyber Consortium helping us with the content for our cyber forum. And it's unfortunately it's a lot of defense, but it's something we can't ignore.
Well, I watched the first part of that hearing. It was about 2 hours long, so it was pretty long. But just the first 20 minutes should scare the heck out of anybody that watched it. I mean, that's all you have to watch to really know that you know, if we don't do something, we're in some severe trouble.
Well, and I mean, and they were talking about society.
Well, I think we lost Jim, so we'll just wrap up this episode of RealComm Live. Hopefully we'll get him back. But let's go to our final commercial from one of our sponsors.
All right, maybe somebody didn't like what I said up there.
I know, you have to wonder.
Yeah, 10 years ago you'd have been called a tin hat. Now it's like, okay, maybe.
That's right.
Well, that is not the first time that's happened to me. So we'll leave it at that.
That was suspicious timing for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for covering at the end there. That was great. And I'll say goodbye to you, and then we'll talk about next week's show. Thank you again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. So next week, we have already had this conversation started probably in June at our conference. So we started talking about the financial condition of the market. I think just about everybody knows that we've got some real distress going on in the market. Fed chairman actually mentioned it in some comments a week or so ago, specifically pointing out the debt issues within the commercial real estate industry. And so, you know, our topic of technology innovation is directly related to the health of our industry, and we call it innovation mode versus maintenance mode. And we're all you know, keeping a close eye on the condition of the market to make sure that if we do have to see ourselves go into more of a maintenance mode, that we're ready for it and that we can continue to innovate despite a tightening budget bill. We got a great speaker panelist next week coming to us from TREP. They've got the data on the market. This is going to be a no-nonsense conversation. They're going to lay it out, how much debt distress, you know, where's utilization, how are we looking, and hopefully will help us get to the bottom of this story by the conference as well, because by June, I think we might be seeing a little bit more pressure in this market. So with that, thank you all. You have a great day. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you next week on RealComm Live. Be well.